Hi everyone, I'm Zoreen from Esports Network, here to talk to Boogie today, CSGO caster, also PUBG caster. Boogie, how are you, man?
Very, very good. Thank you very much for the invitation, Zoreen. I'm very happy to be here today with you.
Oh, we're very happy to have you here. So why don't we kick this off? Why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit more about who you are for folks who may not already know you.
Sure. So my name is Bogdan Boogie Carp, and I'm known mainly for PUBG casting, but I sometimes do CSGO casting, as you mentioned, of course. But yeah, mainly my bread and butter would be PUBG so far. Started about a bit more than a year ago, and it's been an insanely fun journey, especially through the PUBG scene. I've had nothing but pleasure working hard with other people that are also hard workers and very dedicated to building the esports side of this wonderful game that we call PUBG.
Awesome. Well, it's very great to have you here. And, PUBG is such a new and fresh thing, especially given the game was only officially released recently, actually.
Yeah.
Wanted to get your thoughts on that. What do you think about the game now that it's officially like no longer in early access and no longer a beta?
Well, yeah, we had the official release on the 20th of December, and at that point in time, there were still some little issues with rubber banding. Well, some might call them little, some might be a bit more annoyed. But actually, a week after that, on the 27th, is what I would call the official release of PUBG when that issue was sorted, and it became a very, very reliable platform to train on, and it just became a much more smoother experience, and people got a lot happier at that point in time. So I think we've come a long way from that point, and it's wonderful to see where we are today and what an amazing community we have as well with that.
Do you feel the difference was like night and day from before and after?
Well, on the technical aspect, definitely there was a much better like FPS improvement in the first place, and that's because what they've did is they've upgraded to they use like mainly they use the Unreal Engine 4, right, to make this game as graphically beautiful as it is. So what they did was they had a massive improvement from a previous version of the Unreal Engine 4 to a newer one, which is actually what caused the rubber banding initially, which is what they had to fix afterwards. But that improved the FPS greatly, and it also allowed for the textures to be more colored and just prettier overall. So now we're looking at a much better representation or rendering of what we would have expected months ago.
Yeah, and it's actually kind of shocking to me because obviously PUBG has been such a successful game. Even before it was officially released, people were happy to play the game, even with all the bugs and the grievances that it had. What do you think about the growth? I mean, the game is now pretty much always on top of the highest concurrent users on Steam. Do you think this popularity is going to keep growing, or do you think that it's kind of hit its peak where it is right now?
Oh, first off, what I think about it is I'm super excited because to be working and to be pouring in all my heart and passion into this platform, it's fantastic to see the growth. For me, it's really for me and my friends involved in these PUBG projects. It's an absolute, godsend that we're seeing this growth. Um, it's not translating as powerful into esports at the minute because the platform is open there. There's a lot of fantastic potential talent there. But in terms of growth, you were talking about how it will grow. We're seeing some sort of a steadier line approaching the PUBG 1.0 launch. Of course, it's in the Guinness World of Records now as the game with the highest player count at one time. Of course, we've crossed the 3.1 million people playing at the same time in PUBG. So I think 2018 is more likely going to be a year where the platform and the game grows for the Xbox One and more importantly for the esports scene.
hmm hmm What do you think about the developers' current approach to patching the game and releasing new content for it? Do you think that the rate that they're going at now is good, or what would you prefer to see them do?
Well, we had battle royale games before, and one of the things that the community didn't really like about the other previous battle royale titles is the lack of transparency or the lack of communication between the developers and the player base, right? So what we've seen was the massive transition from all these players and from new players as well into PUBG was partly due to their incredible communication every time they would deploy a new patch. they would mention the stuff that they fixed before and where they got it from as well. For example, from Reddit, we've listened to Reddit, or we've listened to Twitter, we've listened to your comments, we've listened to the Steam community. So they actually, the fact that they actually listen and come back with solutions and fixes to this is absolutely magnificent. It's not something that a lot of developers are doing at the moment, and it's a surefire way for success, especially when you have a good game behind that.
Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, you want to be careful about going, I guess, too far down the rabbit hole, right?
Yeah, yeah, you don't really want to listen to all the cries out there. There's going to be people, that want a certain thing, and they might be a vocal minority, let's say, that asks for a certain thing,
Mm,
whereas the majority wouldn't really necessarily want that. So it's a bit of a difficult job right now for Bluehole to try and filter out and see and tap into the community, let's say, every single time there's some sort of an idea launching. So of course there's plenty of ideas afoot, of course, so you kind of have to be careful, but they're doing a great job at it so far. And I think it's Poopy Queen, the one that was actually taking care of the social media there, Sammy from Bluehole,
mm,
that does a fantastic job at filtering out what's actually important and what's on the secondary line of approach, let's say.
mm-hmm. It's kind of funny because you mentioned battle royale games before, like the term in general, and I think it's interesting that you say that because it encompasses like this genre which is kind of taken off now, especially if you look at competitors like Fortnite, which is a very similar game. That can't be ignored and or denied. But like, what do you think about games like Fortnite, which are also seeing quite a success in the genre?
Well, there's a bit of a difference, right, between a game where you need to purchase it first, rather, and a game that would be
Hmm.
free to play. Of course, a lot more people will be attracted to Fortnite and other type of battle royale games, or any other type of game that's free to play. Um, Mechanically speaking, I think the game borrows a little bit from Daisy, actually, with the recoil control, or the recoil response rather,
Hmm.
and it feels very smooth actually playing Fortnite. So that's a major plus. For what I'm interested in, which is more of a competitive type of play and more of an esports type of thing, I'm not too sure whether or not this can be made into a viable business. Let's say that. At least I don't know if they're going to be able to do that this year. I think the only successful game that was free to play so far was pretty much League of Legends, as far as I'm aware. I'm sure there were others as well. Um, but they didn't actually have that great of a success. Of course, you can turn any kind of game to some amount into an esports, but Fortnite, it's fun to play. For me, it's more like a casual break, whether I would need that one or not. Lately, I haven't really needed a break from PUBG. But yeah, for me, it's like a break from PUBG. The way it goes so far. It's pretty much PUBG, and then everything else.
Oh, okay, interesting. What is it about PUBG in particular that you think sets it above everyone else?
It offers, well, first off, the graphics for me are a big plus. Second off, the way the game mechanics, actually, the way you're supposed to play it tactically, and that makes it a very powerful game. And the fact that it's approached to reality much more than, let's say, H1, which is a
Hmm.
bit of a more on the arcadey style, but it's not that close as it was, like, for example, to say with Arma 3, where the approach to reality sometimes hinders the gameplay. So the gameplay feels smooth as long as you get used to it, as long as you put in some good hundreds of hours, you're gonna feel it like it's a smooth kind of type of experience, and
Mm.
that's a bit of a rare bird that not a lot of developers attain. Fortnite definitely attained that. If we're talking about the other title, um, but it yields to a more simple approach into a more kind of fun, casual, arcadey type of style of game. For me, I'm
Mm.
a bit more into the serious stuff coming in from CS:GO, of course.
Mm, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I kind of see Fortnite as like the TF2 of shooters, right? It's like a
Yeah,
fun experience and it's very polished, but
yeah, it
mm,
reminds of Battlegrounds, no, Battlegrounds, Battlefield Heroes, actually, very, very much as well. And it's a fun thing to play, of course, but yeah, just not my cup of tea. It is a great game. It's just not my cup of tea.
mhm, mhm. What are your thoughts on PUBG releasing on Xbox One? Do you think is cross-platform play something you would like to see happen, and what implications do you think that would have?
For cross-platform, um, I'm not too sure you can implement it successfully in a game where mechanics and sheer skill can be accounted for so heavily. Um, where PvP is a core, oh, that's battle royale games for you in a nutshell. PvP, right? Where PvP is
Mm,
such an important element. I don't know whether or not a transition from console to keyboard and mouse can be a successful one, because you kind of have to consider how much of an advantage do we give Xbox player, for example, where he or she may have 30 FPS and a harder kind of way to control the character. So do we increase the auto aim? But then again, that's going to disadvantage the PC players, which are not going to be necessarily in the top tier, all of them. So it's a
Mm,
bit of a harder transition to make. Perhaps, there's some sort of a genius idea that I don't know of. But so far, considering, PvP, where mechanical skill is such an important part, I'm not too sure whether or not the transition could be easy. Maybe for more casual servers, maybe for zombie servers, it could be a thing for that transition, because zombie doesn't necessarily require that much skill in PUBG right now.
hmm So moving on to more of the esports side of things, which I'm really interested to get your thoughts on. Firstly, do you think PUBG has what it takes to become a top tier esport?
Absolutely. The base platform is there. And for
Mhm.
me, that is a game that allows players to showcase their talent, whether it would be tactical approach or whether it would be sheer mechanical prowess. Um, and then after that, for me, good esports platform would be something where the developers listen to the esports community. And with that, with PUBG, we've seen plenty of times. It keeps on growing and growing. They have meetings every single week, as far as I know, with the bigger organizations. Um, and those are the two major things for me, right? A community that has some sort of an access to developers and developers that respond back, and a platform where you can see talent grow and where you can see talent expand, because we're not at the inception of the PUBG sports scene, but we've yet to discover the greatest plays. Every single time I cast PUBG, I see something new, something different, new tactics, new approaches, new spray controls come up, and they're just they makes for a really lovely experience.
hmm hmm To, I guess, to present the other side of the argument as well. Some people have said that the game has too much RNG or it's a bit too random for competitive play. What would you say to that?
I don't think of a title. Actually, there's no title that comes to mind, and I've been thinking about this with my friends as well. There is
hmm
no title that comes to mind that has absolutely zero RNG. Yes, of course, in PUBG there is a an RNG factor in that, loot can be a very important element. Circles can be a very, very important element as well. And that's why specifically you don't have games that are best of one. In PUBG, a best of one would definitely not determine who the best teams are in the world. That's why you would have them preferably best of fives. We used to do the best of three formats in many orgs. Um, but then again, the best of three orgs were just for one evening, where it was a monthly or 2 month long kind of tournament. It was just that it was one time best of three. So having a best of eight, for example, would be a good way to determine who would be the better teams. It would really kind of filter out the good ones from the lesser talented ones. BO5s are also a reliable method to see in a short term period. BO5s should definitely not be something that I would recommend. But
hmm
yeah, at best, best of eight would be a perfect way to find this out. And when you do the 8 matches in a row, you can't really talk about RNG anymore, because you can't really say that the same team's got the same kind of great loot or the same kind of circle look for 8 matches in a row. So there you go.
mm I don't know if you saw I Am Oakland, but they adopted a point format for that tournament. Would you say that structure that they used to run that event was suitable for competitive PUBG?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. The
hmm
guys are very intelligent behind ESL, of course, the company that produced this, and they have amazing experience in producing tournaments, and they've really listened to the esports community. Another great thing about PUBG is that the pros constantly talk to the tournament organizers, and they try to unify their voice as well. And they've tailored this experience to be as close to best as possible, for 8 matches, let's say that. Um, I think the point system was good, and it's a point system that is finely tuned and perhaps a little bit different, on both sides, on tournaments that we currently have. So pretty much every single tournament that we have so far uses a point system. Even championships and cups use the same, because you somehow have to reward kills as well, but you also have to reward good placement and tactical positioning for the
Mm.
for the chicken dinner or for the top three. Let's say that.
But obviously, I mean, the game's not perfect. You know, it's not esports perfect, like ready for esports. Yeah. What would you like to see it like the developers do, or even Green himself has said that he feels that PUBG is not perfect for an esports viewing experience yet. What are some things that you'd like to see them do with it?
Brendan's coming in from an Irish heritage, and it can only be understood that he stays humble. I live in the same country. I'm not, born and raised in Ireland, but I can definitely understand where he's coming from, and I can understand what he means about the game as well. Absolutely, the game is, it's still a work in progress, but we're getting closer to that final point. And I don't think it will ever be a moment when we say, okay, done. This is where we leave PUBG, and we don't need to fine tune it anymore. We can just run amok and create some sort of an esports platform that never needs to be fine tuned again. There's always going to be discussions with the community. There's always going to be talks with the pros, with the organizers of tournaments, and I think what Brendan was hinting towards is the fact that there might be some need of tuning for example, for circles, for more maps, for a bit more diversity, because um, players can become really really good at Angel, but let's say they're not going to be that good at Miramar, so they need to have their time to progress through those maps as well, and through the new maps that will be to come, the night game mode, and of course the snow map that we're most likely going to see in the next few months.
So I went to IM Oakland and I did watch the tournament. It seemed that a lot of the audience grievances were regarding the observer camera. I don't know how much you've seen. As a caster yourself, I imagine that's a very important aspect for you. Do you think that the observer camera needs to be fixed or tweaked at the moment?
I think we just need to give more time to our observers to actually practice, and we do have that time. We have that playground, and it's fantastic. We have these online tournaments that I keep referring to. Let's say GLL, Awesome. Let's say PUBG Online, Expos. There are plenty of tournaments. Legends Arena, plenty of places where observers can hone their skills as well as the players. Right. That's why we have this PUBG scene, and as I said, it's not its inception. We've been doing this for quite a few good months. And we actually have very talented observers. The cameras, there's certain little things that could be fixed and improved. Of course, we're in talks. The organizers are in talks with Bluehole every single week, trying to get these things improved for the observing part. Um, as far as the actual tool itself goes, I've actually had the chance to use it myself, because at the start of PUBG casting, when we first started building the esports scene, we didn't actually have any observers. We had to do all the work as casters. We had to, observe, produce, and cast at the same time. So, oh yeah, that's a thing that a lot of people would do in CS:GO as well. Like, don't worry about it. Like you kind of get used to it. PUBG is much more taxing than CS:GO, of course, much more taxing. But at the end of the day, it's also a very rewarding experience if you do it properly. We do have the great observers that we need. If you want particular examples that come to mind in NA, I would think of Skyline. He's an absolute legend when it comes to observing. Of course, there's Sapphire that comes in from this particular FPS genre, and she's got the mastermind. And coming into a new title will be much easier for her to adapt. And she's already shown us that she can do that. The EU, of course, I could think of Ansvar. We have a lot of talented people that could easily put the camera as it is right now to good use. We just have to employ these people.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. What new maps would you like to see come to the game?
There were talks about the night game mode, and I'm not 100% sure whether it's not going to be a night game mode or whether it's going to be a night game map. If it would be the latter, I would love it. For me, having tactical approaches to plays would be a really cool element, and I think a night game mode would really bring that out of people. The sneakiness. Not to say that I'm a snake. I don't like snacking around. Just to put it out there, snake, by the way, is a term we use in PUBG for people who crawl about the tall grass. Definitely not one of them. But tactically, yes, I would love to see a night game map, and I'm very excited to see the snow one as well, because we live in a Europe full of snow, so it'll be pretty cool to see how it develops in there, and maybe we can learn a thing or two on that map as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Boogie. I guess on a parting note, is there anything else that you'd like to say, I guess, about PUBG esports in general, or shout out to your fans out there?
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you for having me on the interview. It's been an
Of
absolute
course.
pleasure. And well, yeah, thank you to everyone that gets to watch this. Stay tuned to this channel. I've heard it's going to get pretty hot. Don't forget, I'll throw it out there. Don't forget to leave a sub, a comment, and a like.
Oh my
And
gosh. That's what I like to hear.
hashtag sellout. Okay, there you go. That's the caster coming out of me, thinking out all the sponsors and whatnot. Thank you, of course, to all the fans of PUBG and my fans in person that support me throughout this experience. It's not easy having a full-time job and doing this, but there's a lot of people that stay behind, and I appreciate them for that. And there's a lot of people in PUBG right now that have their own full-time jobs and try to get into the pro scene. So much respect to those people as well. And thank you for making this what it is. And stay tuned to PUBG in 2018. It's going to be absolutely wonderful.
Awesome. Well, I definitely hope to see the growth of PUBG and casters like yourself out there. If you want to check out more Esports Network content, be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube. Thanks.